رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته كيف حالكم جميعا يا أيها الأخوة والأخوات or brothers and sisters ونسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى تقبل منا أعمال صالحة في شهر هذا المبارك وفي رمضان أن يتقبل منا أيضا صيامنا وقيامنا وتلاوتنا واجتهادنا وصدقاتنا في هذا الشهر المبارك. Ameen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us the righteous actions that we have put forth in this blessed month. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to also accept from us our fasting, our standing at night in Taraweeh, our recitation of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our giving of charity, our sadaqat. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept those efforts from us, bi'idhnillah. Since we are coming on to the last portion or the last half of this blessed month, which means that the month is departing, we are reaching the last 10 nights, brothers and sisters. This is the time where our momentum should increase. So if you are taking that time through the first 20 days, where you are pacing yourself out, and you are building yourself up for the climax, which is the last 10 nights because of what is contained in the last 10 nights from Laylatul Qadr, then it is something that you are able, inshallah ta'ala, to increase in your daily worship. So for example, mathalan, if you were someone who was reading one juz, alright, on the last 10 nights, you're going to increase that juz and you can read 2 juz. You understand? That's about 20 pages. So if you were reading 4 pages, say a ruba, sometimes 3.5 to 4 pages, then the last 10 nights, you're going to increase that. You're going to be reading about 7.5 to 8 pages. You see? You're going to do a double dosage of the act that you normally were doing for the first 20 days of Ramadan. You're going to increase. So why we call this talk, inshallah ta'ala, the checklist that you should have going into these last 10 nights. What should be the checklist? What should you check off on your list for these last 10 nights? We will use the hadith of our beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that was reported from his wife Aisha radhiyallahu ta'ala anha about the Prophet sallallahu. In this hadith, it gives us an insight on how the Prophet sallallahu approached the last 10 nights and how he will prepare and make preparations for the last 10 nights. Hopefully, we can extract from this hadith a bona fide checklist that we can take with us, each tailor-made to us, because we know our circumstances, we know our situations, and how to approach these last 10 nights. I would like to start off with a beautiful statement, and I know I made this statement before, but because we're coming so close to the end of Ramadan, this statement is more prevalent. The Salaf, they said, من صام رمضان وهو يتحدث نفسه أنه إن أفطر رمضان ألا يعصي الله دخل الجنة بغير حساب بغير مسألة ولا حساب. So the first half of the statement is that whoever fasts during the month of Ramadan, while discoursing with himself, while telling himself that I am going to complete this month without disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I will continue on the path that I have embarked upon in Ramadan, outside of Ramadan. This individual will enter paradise without any being questioned or being brought to account. On the flip side, they said, من صام رمضان وهو يتحدث لنفسه ويتحدث نفسه أنه إذا أفطر عصى ربه فصيامه عليه مردود. So they said that the other individual who fast during the month of Ramadan, right, but have told himself that when Ramadan is over, I am out of prison, I am going back to what I was already upon before Ramadan came in. I am going to disobey my Lord. I am going to continue upon what I was upon and not increase or improve. They said that then this individual fast is not accepted. That should be a reminder to each and every one of us. Because how we carry on after the month of Ramadan is going to show us the signs whether or not we have improved or whether or not our Ramadan was accepted, whether or not our Ramadan had bear good fruits. Is because if you were sincere in your ibadah during the month of Ramadan, you will be even more sincere outside of it. And if you cut off the ibadah, alright, that you were doing in the month of Ramadan, and you cut it off, it's an indication that you weren't sincere in your ibadah in Ramadan. Think about that. We're not talking about things that normally you won't do. As we talk about making Salatul Tarawih, you won't do that after Ramadan. You can pray Salatul Jama'ah fi Qiyamul Layl, but you do it ahyanan, as we already discussed that in Bulugh al-Maram class, where Shaykh Uthaymeen was explaining. You can do that sometimes, not often, not all the times. Not like how we can do it in Ramadan, where we get together collectively in the masjid, and we have a person who's an imam who leads the prayer, etc., etc. No, not like that. But you can get together sometimes. It shouldn't become a custom or habit. But you can still pray night prayer. You can pray night prayer. You can continue your night prayer after the month of Ramadan. It won't be Taraweeh, but it can be 3 rak'ats. It can be 5, but continue it. You understand? It can be after Isha, you can offer witr. You can wake up, you can offer witr. Keep that going. If you were more generous in the month of Ramadan, you increase in your generosity, then you be more generous when you're outside. If you cut off these acts that you have adopted in the month of Ramadan, it will indicate your insincerity. On the authority of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she narrated an insight for us. One of the Jews of having the Prophet wives narrate to us narrations is giving us a glimpse and an insight to the home of the Prophet ﷺ, to his character behind doors, how the Prophet ﷺ behave, how he interact. This is precious information. And the ulama, they mentioned that one of the benefits of the Prophet ﷺ having numerous wives is the fact that we can see his inside, the way that he carried himself with his families. We can get another glimpse from those different reports of different eyes and different families and different households. So she said that كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا دخل العشر أي العشر آخر من رمضان شد مئزاره وأحيا ليله وأيقظ أهله. متفق عليه. This hadith is collected by both Bukhari and Muslim. There are 3 things she mentioned, and hopefully we're going to extract our checklist. She said that 1, the Prophet ﷺ, he used to, when the 10 nights, meaning the 10 nights from Ramadan will enter, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ will shadda mi'zarahu, and we'll talk about that. That's the first thing the Prophet ﷺ would do. Wa ahya laylahu, and the second thing that he would do is he will ahya layla, meaning he will give life to his night. In other words, he will stand up, and we're going to talk about that. He will make thicker. He will be awoke. He will be awake during those hours, filling them up with ibadah. Alright? He will liven his night, and will ayqadha ahlahu, and he will wake his family up. So if his wife went to sleep, then he will wake his family up to engage and join in on the ibadah. Shaykh Uthaymeen brought a beautiful point for us to understand that the word kana, when used in the hadith, especially the Messenger of Allah, does not mean da'iman, always that he would do this. But it means that the majority of the times he would. It doesn't mean that he always did this, but majority of the times he would. And he brings us an example when it's mentioned in a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ used to read certain surahs for Jumu'ah. And he would read from Surah A'la and Surah Ghashiyah. And in another narration, he used to read Surah Jumu'ah and Surah Munafiqeen, which shows you that he didn't always read the same group of surahs or the same two surahs. He switched it up. So the Shaykh is agreeing with his point. He's saying that when we say kana to the Prophet doesn't mean that he always did that action. No, he majority of the time did the actions, but he didn't always do it. Tayyib. The Shaykh says the reason why the Prophet will approach the last 10 nights is because what is contained in those 10 nights. Do you understand? The virtue of the last 10 nights is because of Laylatul Qadr. That's the virtue. Why are you doing all of this? Why are you staying up all the night? Why are you praying? Why are you going so hard for the last 10 nights? Each and every one should know this. Because of Laylatul Qadr. What did Allah say about Laylatul Qadr? Inna anzalnahu fi Laylatul Qadr. Indeed, we have revealed it, the Quran, on the night of decree. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ. And what should make you know the estimate? Do you understand? The degree of Laylatul Qadr. Laylatul Qadr khayrun min alfi shahr. That the Laylatul Qadr is better than 1,000 months. As the ulama mentioned, that the ibadah, the reward, is equivalent to a person worshipping for 1,000 months or worshiping for 80 years. That's the reward that you get if you catch this night. 80 years of reward of worshiping. SubhanAllah. That's the reward you get if you catch this night. So that's the incentive. That's the reason why the Prophet ﷺ will make this preparation. And he will approach these 10 nights like that. Right? Shadda mi'zaru. What does that mean? He says, Shadda mi'zaru. A mi'zar, makana izaru yashaddahu. Right? Yarabatuhu. Meaning he would tie up his izar. Okay? He would tie up his izar. Okay? Now, tying up an izar can be metaphorically, and it actually be understood literally too. That he would literally tighten it, but then it's also understood that he would get on his A game for us to understand. He would tighten up. He would buckle down. You understand what I'm saying? Meaning he will buckle down. He will increase now. The intensity now will take that role. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. ومعنى هذه الجملة فكلا كناية عن اجتهاد. He said the meaning of this sentence is that the Prophet ﷺ will have kinaya and al-ijtihad, showing us that he would become real keen and diligent and striving and putting forth the effort for these 10 nights. He says because when a person wants to do an action that contains in it some type of difficulty, right? He says then the person shut the mi'zar. He tightened up his izar. Yani al-izar li'Allah, so that that person can be able to handle this work that he's doing. It is said the meaning of mi'zar in this hadith is that the Prophet ﷺ did not have relations with his wife. He will withdraw from all of his wives during these last 10 nights. And it is also known that the Prophet ﷺ will make itikaf anyway. So in itikaf you can't have relations with your wives during the last 10 nights, okay? Because you are secluded in the masjid. So it's not permissible for the mu'takif, the one who practices itikaf, to have relations with their wives. Alright, so the Prophet ﷺ will not have relations with their wives. Okay? Ahya. Shaykh Uthaymeen says, وَأَحْيَا لَيْلَهُ. What it means is that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ will stand and he will make dhikr. أي سحر الليل فلم ينم لاشتغاله صلى الله عليه وسلم بالقيام. لم يرد عنه صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه كان يقوم الليل كله إلا في أشهر أواخر من رمضان. So the Shaykh says that the Prophet ﷺ will not sleep at all during that night. During those nights, the Prophet ﷺ would not sleep. Alright? Now, a person can stand up and salat and pray. A person can read Quran. A person can make dhikr. A person can do dua, make supplication. These are the following things that you can do throughout the entire night. And you can portion out the night proportionally. Do you understand? That you can get done. Alright? So the first thing that we want to extract from our checklist, all right, the first thing that we want to have on our checklist is to be prepared to make a good preparation for facing these last 10 nights. What should our preparation look like? Sheikh Uthaymeen is going to talk about that in a minute. He's going to mention how do one prepare for these nights or act of ibadah. Tayyib. He says that the Prophet ﷺ did not stand up in prayer for the last 10 nights in Ramadan, except for the last 10 nights in Ramadan. He did not stay up for the entire night. So for the first 20 days, the Prophet ﷺ did not stay up. He would sleep. Alhamdulillah, do ibadah, and then he would sleep. He would not stand up. كيف يتأتى ذلك مع أن الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام يفطر ويصلي المغرب ويصلي العشاء يتوضأ ويقضي حاجته. Okay, so the Shaykh, he says that making istidad. So first he says, if someone was to think, how is it possible that the Prophet was able to do all of this? He was able to pray salat, break his fast, pray maghrib, pray isha, make wudu, and even fulfill his needs, right? The answer is, the Shaykh says that the preparation for ibadah is ibadah in and of itself. Preparing for worship is worship itself. Preparing for worship is worship itself. You're preparing and making the preparations for what? You're making the preparations for the last 10 nights. That preparation that you make is also considered ibadah. He says, the people of knowledge, he says, وَمُقَدَّمَاتُ الصَّلَاةِ دَاخِلَةٌ فِي أَحْيَانِ. They said that the things that precedes the actual salat falls under and is included in what it means to be up during the night. For example, he said if a person was to discipline himself, to fulfill his needs, and to offer wudu, and he wanted to, make a ghusl, so that he can, to encourage himself, to give that rigor, right? You put on your best appearance. On that night, you want to be on your best appearance. You might want to wear your favorite thobe or your favorite izar, or so forth. You go fresh to the salat, right? He says, and the person drinks some qahwa, something to help him keep him to stay up, right? He says, does this enter into the means of ihya layla, as the Prophet ﷺ will stay up all night? He says, yes. We say that this entered. Why? Because this is a wasila. This is a means for one to establish the ibadah. It's a means. Alright? So making good preparation. How do you make good preparation, brothers and sisters? You tighten up that izar. Tighten up that izar, meaning that you buckle down. Alright? You have that on your first checklist. I am going to tighten up the izar. I'm going to make the proper preparation. A part of that proper preparation is some of the things you can do. You can wash up. You can put on your best. You can use some cologne, some oil, whatever, to smell good. You can also do what else? You can also, on top of that, you can drink something or use something to help you stay awake. And you can proportion your night generously. Some of us are going to be praying in the masjid behind the imam. But it is known that for those who in the masjid, the imam might not lead with the witr. So he might stop on the 8th rak'at and tell people come back like 1 or 2. That way y'all can stand up praying, inshallah ta'ala, till fajr. Well, till it's time to, make sahur and then fajr, etc. Okay? That way you're not really going to sleep. You're still up, pretty much. For those who take that, you can do that. For those of you who pray home, who's not going to make it for the last 10 nights, or not make itikaf and doesn't have that help and that push, then I encourage you to proportion out your night. Alright? And what I mean by proportion out your night, set a time where you're going to be doing prayer, set a time where you're going to be doing the dua, set a time where you're going to be doing dhikr, reading the book of Allah, set a time when you're going to be making adhkar, and set a time, inshallah ta'ala, for those things so that it can proportion your night out gradually. Don't burn yourself out, and do not, I repeat, do not, this is advice to myself and you, stuff yourself. Have some restraint. Don't stuff yourself. If you stuff yourself with food and stuff like that, you're going to be lazy, and you're not going to want to put in the necessary efforts to catch that night. And you're going to be snoozing, and it could have been later to cover. Do you understand? and you could have missed that reward. The climax of Ramadan, you could have missed, all because you couldn't restrain yourself from eating too much. No, cut back. Take a little cut back. So you know what? I normally will probably go in, but I ain't gonna go in. I need to be fresh to allow us to approach this night with preparation. And then secondly, on our checklist, making it proportion out that night nicely. Shaykh Uthaymeen, he brings some benefits that we can extract from this tremendous hadith. And that's the first thing, is the permissibility of staying up all night in prayer in the last 10 nights. No one can censor someone if they decide to pray all night. So if the imam said, you know what, I'm going back to Bakr, and we're going to rock out. Bakr, Ali Imran, we're going back. Right? La best be. No one can censor the imam and say, you know what, you're doing something wrong. Why? Because we know that the Prophet ﷺ was there all night. Alright, so it's permissible and it's recommended that a person can stay up all night, stand in prayer. He says, it is befitting for the person that he's put forth the effort to make dua, salat, and to wake up his family. وَجِرَانِهِ مِمَّنْ يَسْتَطِيعُ إِقَاظُهُم, and even from his neighbors, if they be Muslim, and it's possible for him to do so, wake them up as well. وفي غير عشر أواخر أفضل أن ينام نصف الليل ثم يقوم ثلث الليل. He says, outside of these 10 nights, then it is more preferable that a person sleep half of the night and he stands 1/3 of the night, or he sleeps 1/6 of the night, etc. Because this is what the Prophet ﷺ used to do, as Aisha radiallahu anha said, لا تراه سحر إلا فيته نائما. وفائدة من ذلك, another benefit from that is that sleeping the first half of the night gives the body the necessary strength, okay, and determination and will, if you will, so that it can stand for the 1/3 of the night. It's like it's rejuvenating. The body rejuvenated itself just so it can prepare, so it can stand. He says, ثم ينام ثلث لينقص التعب الذي حصله بقيام. He says sleeping 1/6 also helps diminish the tiredness or the weariness that occur from standing. وَلِيَسْتَجِدُ النِّشَاطِ لِصَلَاةِ الْفَجْرِ. And for this reason, you will find that eagerness to pray Salat al-Fajr. وَهَلْ يُقَاسْ عَلَى ذَلِكَ بَقِيَّةَ اللَّيَالِ ليالي بمعنى أن كل إنسان ينبغي تسهر كل ليل كله في القيام. لا، بل إن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم نهى عن ذلك. حين بلغه أن قوم قال أحدهم إني أقوم ولا أنام أصوم وأفطر وأصلي وأفنى وأتزوج النساء فمن رغب عن سنتي فليس مني. So somebody might say, is it from this, is it safe to say that it is forbidden for a person to stand up the entire night to pray? Right? He says, we say no. Rather, because the Prophet ﷺ has prohibited that. Whereas it has been reported, it have reached him that there was a people that he said to them, he said to one of them, indeed, I stand up at night and pray, and I also sleep. He said, I fast, to the other, and I also break my fast. He said, I pray, and I also sleep, and I marry women, and whoever turns away from my sunnah is not from me. Now, so he answering questions. You got to understand that a lot of this stuff is taken from audio, put into book form so that we can have it. So there are a lot of questions that the person who prepared to put this together had placed some of those questions in here. Right? This is what I'm looking at. Right? So he says, فضل عشر أواخر من رمضان. Another benefit we can take is the virtue of the last 10 nights. وذلك لتخصيص النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم هذه العشر بإحياء الليل. For this reason, we see that the Prophet ﷺ have singled out specifically these last 10 nights by staying awake during all of the nights. And the Nabi ﷺ muhtaj ila amal salih. And also another benefit we can take is that the Prophet ﷺ muhtaj ila amal salih لأنه يشتهي في الأجر الأواخر ما لا يشتهي في غيرها. That the Prophet ﷺ is also one who was in need of doing righteous actions, because he became more diligent in these last 10 nights than any other nights outside of them. Also, another benefit we can extract is that it's befitting that we face these last 10 nights by having the necessary strength to go into them. right? Due to the statement of Aisha, and she said that he shut that mizaru, that he would tighten up his izar. So this is not the time, brothers and sisters. I hope you understand this. This is not the time during these last 10 nights for you to say, you know, I don't, you know, I'm just feeling a little bit lazy. This is not that time. 20 days of Ramadan, you have the time, sleep, adjustment, so forth and so on. These last 10 nights is really about cranking up your ibadah to catch that 1,000 years of reward, right? Equivalent to 1,000 reward if you catch the Laylatul Qadr. This is the highlighting of Ramadan. It's not the time to be lazy. It's not the time to gag around. And I'm going to be honest with you. People who do not prepare for the last 10 nights, people who do not seek out Laylatul Qadr, these are the people who doesn't benefit from their fast the most. These are individuals that have clear signs to us that they are not going to be keeping up with anything they were doing outside of Ramadan. See, it's only going to be for the one who was preparing. You see, the one who was making the necessary preparation, because they're going to crank up their ibadah. It's for that person. It's not for the person who was already sluggish throughout the whole Ramadan. Sleeping through the whole thing, badly reading the book of Allah, badly making dhikr, badly giving sadaqah. They wasn't really putting in no hard effort anyway. So the last 10 nights is just like the first 10 nights. You understand? The middle 10 nights. It's no differentiation for them. So they're not going to go hard. But for the individual who really wanted the benefit of Ramadan, who really wanted the max, would know that each part of the Ramadan gets better. The first 10 nights, that's 1. The second 10 nights, that's 2. The last 10 nights, they increase more in their ibadah. They understand that this is real. Do you understand? I'm going to get it in because this is the climax of Ramadan. This is the climax of Ramadan. طيب, Sheikh says, أنه ينبغي الإنسان في عشر الأواخر ألا يأتي أهله اقتداء بالنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا سيما وأنه في عشر الأواخر كان معتكفا ومعتكفا لا يمكن أن يأتي أهله. So he says that it is befitting for the person during the last 10 nights that he do not approach his wife for wanting to get it in. Basically, taking the example of the Prophet ﷺ, especially during the last 10 nights, because the Prophet ﷺ used to be a mu'takif, one who used to practice i'tikaf. A mu'takif la yumkin an yati ahlahu. Nonetheless, brothers and sisters, I want you to understand that all of this is voluntary and it's not obligatory. Okay? Nonetheless. But if you want to try to get that good reward, then you want to try to emulate the Prophet as much. No one can say that if you approach your wife during these last 10 nights that you did something totally out of pocket or wrong, unless you were in i'tikaf. If you're supposed to be in i'tikaf and you bounced out of the masjid and left home just so you can feel some relationship with your wife, then that's problematic because it's not permissible for the person who's a mu'takif to be doing that. You're supposed to leave for a necessity, and that's not one of the things you leave for. And it's not permissible for you to have relations while that time. That's a little bit different for a person who's home with his family and he's not making i'tikaf, but he still want to catch and get the reward of Laylatul Qadr. He should try his best not to approach his wife during that night. You had 20 nights to approach your wife. You understand? You have 20 nights. You can hold off 10 nights. Inshallah ta'ala. You're doing this for ibadah. And this is a proof, by the way, that the month of Ramadan is about ibadah. This is a proof. The month of Ramadan is about ibadah, brothers and sisters. That's what it's about. He says, أنه يستحب في العشر الأواخر أن يوقظ الرجل أهله. Also, another benefit is that we see that you shouldn't be one who wants to pray alone during these 10 nights. These 10 nights, if you left your wife alone and you left your family alone, that's okay for the first 20 nights. But the last 10 nights, you don't want to leave them alone. Come on and let's pray. Let's get together. Let's offer salah. Let's read some of the book of Allah together. We're husband and wife. Let's do some things together. Do you understand? This is encouragement for that, because the Prophet ﷺ did not leave his family. He will wake up his family during these last 10 nights to get some of that reward. This is also a sign that when a person says they want good for someone, then they call them to the highest good first. Right? As we brought the hadith, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. None of you truly believe until you want for your brother what you want for yourself. Right? At the highest of that is that you want that person to ascertain the pleasure of Allah. You want them to enter Jannah. So look how the Prophet ﷺ implemented this. Because during the last 2 nights, yeah, he would crank up his ibadah, but he still would include his family. You understand? So a sign that that man wants some good for you is that that man is going to make sure, come on, let's get some worship in. Pray with me. Read some of the book of Allah, etc. Right? Because he's going to want to worry about your akhirah. He's going to want you to obtain the maximum benefit, and that pleasure of Allah Jalla wa Ala. So he's going to include you. This shows us that. The Prophet ﷺ included his family. The Shaykh said it's recommended. He says, seeing, following behind the Prophet ﷺ practice, and yanshituhum ala qiyam, and encouraging them, yarakubuhum, and actually giving them that desire therein to want to stand during those nights. He says also the permissibility of a person leaning behind from his family in regards to this period. تبين ضعف قول من يقول إنه يلزم أن يبيت عند امرأته ليلة من 4 وينفر في الباقي إن أراد، يعني هذا قول ليس عليه دليل. وإنسان يعاشر أهله بالمعروف، وليس من المعروف في غير مثل هذه الأوقات الفاضلة أن يفرد إنسان عن زوجته 3 ليال من 4. هذا المعروف أن يبيت معها كل ليل إلا إذا دعت حاجة أو مصلحة كقيام رمضان كما في هذا الحديث. So the Sheikh says that, for those people who chose to stay away, or lag behind, if you want, from this family, his wife, during this period, he says, with it explains the weakness of the opinion of the one who says that it is binding upon the person that he spends his night with his wife 1 night out of 4, and that he singles out the rest, right, if he wants. He said this statement doesn't have any evidence for it whatsoever. Rather, the person should live with his wife in ma'ruf. وَلَيْسَ مِنَ ma'ruf, and it is not considered to be from ma'ruf during the likes of this. During times of virtue, fadila. The last 10 nights is the time of virtue, right? And you follow the insan zawjati, that a person single himself away from his family, his wife. Thalatha layala min arba, right? 3 days or 3 nights out of 4. Rather, it's ma'ruf that he spends the whole night with her, unless there is a need or benefit like standing in Ramadan, as it comes in this hadith. Another benefit is the recommendation of waking up the family during the nights of virtue, as the Prophet ﷺ did. Also, another benefit is he called that is, waking up the family is not a command that is wajib in regards to the days that are fadila from the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ. Right? For example, it should not be said, why do you prevent them from sleep? Why do you stop them from sleep? Leave them alone. Let them sleep. Because this is not obligatory. So it is to be said that, indeed it is not obligatory. However, the time period is considered to be from the season of good. So it's not befitting for a person to waste that opportunity. You understand? Yes, it's not obligatory. No, it's not obligatory. We don't have to pray Tarawih. We don't have to stand up all night. It's not obligatory that we have to do so. None of that is obligatory. But during those nights, you want to take on the golden opportunity to catch that reward. This all coincides with our belief that many people don't realize. And it took me a while to understand this. If you truly believe in Allah on the last day, and you truly believe in the Allah Jalla reward, it goes back to what the Prophet said. Men sama Ramadan, and in one narration, men qama Ramadan, imanan, wahtisaban, ghufra lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi. Who one from amongst us do not want the reward mentioned in this hadith? Whoever stands in the month of Ramadan, whoever fasts during the month of Ramadan, out of iman, true belief in Allah Jalla wa Ala, and hoping for the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for doing this act, or doing these acts, right? Who does not want that? His previous sins will be forgiven. Here is Laylatul Qadr. You catch it, it is like you are being rewarded for 1,000 years of worship. There is nothing on the face of this earth that is equivalent to it. You understand? 1,000 years of worship. You might feel like you was the worst bull. You was the worst female. You've been out there partying. You've been out there doing, disobeying Allah Jalla wa'ala, left and right. You might feel like you've been doing this and that. But here is a golden opportunity to make things right. Only deen that I know of that allow you to do that, such as making Hajj. If you have a Hajj Mabrur, you have an accepted Hajj, it is like you a newborn baby in regards to your sins. There are certain acts that you can do that can actually start you back over. Do you not understand? And one of those times that you can actually get a good feeling is during the last 10 nights seeking out Laylatul Qadr. And why wouldn't you want to do this? Not only do you want this, but you want your family to feel it. Wake up, sweetie. I wake you up for everything else. You up for everything else. We can watch a show together. Power coming on tonight. Let's go. Where the popcorn? Let's get it in. No. Allahu Jalla wa'ala and the angels. You understand? This is what's going on. Let's get it. This is what we can do. Let's get it. And waking that family up is something that you want to do. Interestingly enough, I never knew this. Sheikh Uthaymeen comment on the hadith where, and I always was under the impression that this hadith was actually authentic, but he was commenting on the hadith where as though it mentioned that the virtue for the woman who wakes up her husband for the 1:30 of the night to pray night prayer, and if he doesn't want to get up, he pour water on him, right? The Sheikh was saying that this hadith is not, according to what he knows and his knowledge, it's not actually authentic. But he said even if it was authentic, he said he still wouldn't know whether or not, if this is something that they would have to agree to in terms of you throwing water on them. It can cause a problem. You throwing water on somebody, sprinkling water on somebody, right? It can cause a problem waking them up when they sleep. But nonetheless, this is the time that you want to wake the people up. You want to get them up so they can be alive during the ibadah. All right? The Sheikh says the 10th benefit, which is the last, the 11th benefit is the last, but the 10th benefit before the last, he says, جواز تصرف الإنسان في أهله بمعنى أنه يوقظهم إن لم يأمره بذلك. He says managing the permissibility of the husband managing his family. And how do you manage your family? Right? By waking them up. Even if they didn't command you to do so. Your wife didn't tell you, babe, make sure you get me up so I don't miss none of the prayers. Giving you a command to do so. No. This is the time, because of what time it is the time that I am encouraged to wake you up. This is not outside of Ramadan. This is the last 10 nights. And this deals with good opportunity. I am encouraged as a man to wake you up. Get up. Offer salah. As the Prophet ﷺ used to do, he used to wake his family up outside of Ramadan and witr to pray the odd rakat or to pray the 3 rakats. They didn't have to pray the entire prayer with him, but he would wake them up to come get some benefit. Come on. Let's pray. And this shows you when you have someone who cares about your soul. Some people are laying with people that don't care nothing about their nafs. Doesn't care anything about your soul. All they can see is your flesh. Right? And we see the memes going around and people saying if this is who you laying next to, if you can see people's souls instead of their bodies, this is who you laying next to. An individual who don't care about your nafs, about your soul. It's a clear red flag. Danger, danger, danger. It's all red flags. The man doesn't care about your soul. He doesn't care whether or not you obey Allah or not. The verses that we have in the Quran that speaks about the husband and the wife are very potent. I give you one. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. Oh, you who believe, save yourself and your families from the hellfire. I give you another verse. وَأْمُرُ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاصْطَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. Allah Jalla says in Surah Taha, command your family with the prayer and remain diligent and firm. Istabir alayha. Constantly remind them of the prayer. Nourishing the soul. Nourishing the soul. Caring about the soul. That's the man that the guardian should be looking for. Do you care about her flesh or do you care about her soul? If you care about her soul, this is why Hassan al-Basri said, when you marry off the man for the guardians, and you look at the muttaqi, the one who fears Allah, because he's going to do right by the rights of that woman. If he doesn't fear Allah Azza wa Jal, you can forget it. He's not going to do right by the rights of that woman. You understand? I don't care who you are, I don't care who he is, what his status is. If he don't fear Allah, how you think he's going to carry out the rights of that woman? It's just not going to happen. And that's what we need to understand. Carrying about. We see this with the Prophet ﷺ. That's the beauty about Islam. The Prophet ﷺ was a walking example. He said, "Rather, I am the best of you from amongst you to my wives. I am the best of you from amongst you to my wives." And it was true. He was. He cared about their nafs, their soul, and we see it. Do we care about the nafs of our wives? The Prophet ﷺ wouldn't get upset with his wives just to get upset with them. No, he would get upset only if they go against what Allah Jalla has instructed. Look at the wisdom in that. As we as husbands, we should take from that. You don't have to get on your wife about everything. But if she disobey Allah, then she should see how upset you are when she disobey Allah. I'm not talking about knock her upside the head, but I'm talking about she should see the extreme displeasure and the extreme discomfort and how it actually grieves you that she are disobeying Allah Jalla wa Ala. Because that's what the Prophet ﷺ did with his wives. He said, I can tell, Aisha said in one narration, I can tell that, well, the Prophet ﷺ actually said this, I could tell you were upset with me. She said, because you would say, by the Lord of the Kaaba, right? And not the Lord of Muhammad, but the Lord of the Kaaba. Being in tune with one's spouse and one nature, mashallah, right? He says, so the person should manage them. Even though it's not obligatory, and even though they did not command you, you still should, inshallah ta'ala, alert them of the time for salat if the time is wasting out. As for other than a wajib, then it's befitting that you wake them up, even if they didn't command you, so that they don't miss this golden opportunity, this tremendous benefit. Right? The Sheikh said the 11th benefit, and we're going to stop here, is ينبغي اغتنام الأيام فاضلة بالأعمال الصالحة. لهذا قال الفقهاء إن عمل الصالح يضاعف في كل زمان فاضل ومكان فاضل. So the Sheikh says another benefit we take from this hadith is that when you're dealing with days of virtue, virtuous days, then we should be diligent in doing keen or good deeds. When it's the season, a virtuous season, such as Ramadan, such as Hajj, or such as the first 10 days of Hajj, the Hijjah, such as all of these times when there are good times and so forth, good seasons or good things instructed, we should do more good deeds. We should do more good deeds to take advantage of that golden opportunity is when we increase. Also, you can take this in your daily life. I can take this and I can take it. When are you supposed to turn up in your deen? When times come around, or when you are in certain places. If you are blessed by Allah Jalla wa Ala to make it to the Kaaba, then you turn it up. If you're blessed to make it to the Prophet Masjid, then you turn it up. If you're blessed to make it to the Haram, do you understand? If you are in a sacred place, then you can turn it up. If you are in a sacred time, then you can turn it up. These are the times where you want to increase in your righteous actions. Alright? These are the times that you have that gauge. Don't be like so-and-so who increase in a time where it's not even encouraged for you to increase, and then you burn yourself out because now you don't want to increase when it is time for you to increase. You see the backwardness of that? It's not even time for you to increase in doing good deeds, and you're just going all hands. I'm so beat up, and we do that. So energetic. You ever met a brother like that? He's so energetic, super sunnah for 5 months, or even for 3 months, right? And then when the months of virtue come around, the brother is like, he can't get it together. Akhi, what's going on? You know, it's Ramadan. He don't even feel upbeat. But he was just upbeat 3 months ago. Before Ramadan came in, he was way upbeat, right? But it wasn't the time. It was the time for you to be upbeat about your ibadah in this month because it's a golden opportunity. So why are you not hyped for the month of Ramadan in terms of your ibadah I'm talking about? Not in terms of you displaying it, but in terms of your ibadah. Why are you not eager in that? So you don't want to burn yourself out like that. You want to take a chance of the golden opportunities. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to
Read that checklist. Make a good preparation. Prepare good and well by making sure you take certain things you're going to need. Cut back on eating too much because you know it's going to take away and make you sluggish for wanting to stand up. You don't have to stand up the entire night in prayer. Alright? But you could stay awoke until Fajr. Inshallah ta'ala, you should stay awoke until Fajr by doing different things. Read Quran, make dhikr, offer dua, etc. Alhamdulillah, the salat actually covers all of them. The salat is from dhikr. You make dua in salat. You read Quran in salat. Right? All of that is in there. But still, nonetheless, for those who don't want to pray that long, for those who don't have the ability, you don't have to pray that entire long. Normally what I do for my custom, if I'm praying home and I'm not at the masjid, then I portion it out 2, 2, 2. But I make the 2 long. So I might do 2 rak'ats and I might recite at least about 4 or 5 surahs. Right? And okay, bang, that's long. I stop, open up the book of Allah, do some dhikr, make some dua, reflect, boom. So it might take me in my stop. I might stop about at least for like a half an hour. Then I get back up and do another 2. So I'm spacing out the time. So that way I am doing a numbers of things. And I got in my mind that I'm not going to sleep until after Fajr. Yeah, I ain't going to retire until after Fajr. Now for those of you who have to still work and you're not making itikaf, then obviously you're not going to be able to do that because you're going to be tired when you go to work. So I advise you, what you want to do is try to get much of the maximum benefits you can. If you can pray with the imam at the masjid, that is even excellent. And then, inshallah ta'ala, what you want to try to do is try to get your rewarded by doing certain things. Alright? That becomes clear. Alright? We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept this effort from us. And we prepare for these last 10 nights. I believe we are on the 18th now, coming on the 18th night. So the 19th night is getting ready to come, inshallah ta'ala. Well, we said it was incorrect. My translation is definitely for myself. Whatever said is correct from Allah. Jazakallahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.